Sir, Hari Om.
Yeah, okay, fine. We can start the class, right? Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Prata smarami rudi sanspuradatmatattvam Satchit sukham paramaham sagatim turiyam Yat swapna jagara sushuptamaveti nityam Tad brahma nishkalamaham nacha bhuta sangaha Tapo bhikshina papana Shantanam vitaragina Mumuksho namapekshoyam Atma bodho vidhiyate. Welcome everybody. So we are still on the path towards evolution. We had drawn the diagram, if I remember, karma, bhakti and jnana. Once you do karma, bhakti, jnana, it leads to the higher levels of evolution. Many times when we talk of evolution or self-development or spiritual self-realization, people think it's a really tough job and it's a big thing to achieve that. It is big, no doubt. It is little difficult. It is not extremely difficult. It is little difficult. All it needs is a little bit of discipline within ourselves. That's all. So we have done that. As soon as you do the three structures of karma, bhakti and jnana. So the first thing we have done this is extroverted pursuits are to be avoided. Pursuits in the sense you can do in the world whatever you want to do. You can move into the world. You can achieve whatever you want to achieve in this world. Only thing is that there cannot be too much importance to it, because if today's money is making you happy, then tomorrow the lack of it, you will suffer. If today's relationships are making you happy, then tomorrow they will go away, whatever it is. This is the way the time moves. You will suffer. So the non-realization or non-reliance on external contacts is what is important. So to negate that, we have to dive inwards. The only way is to dive inwards. Like Arthur Schopenhauer says, it is difficult to find happiness within oneself. It is difficult, but it is impossible to find it anywhere else. You try as you might. So understanding this, I dive inwards to find out where does this happiness lie. And let me try to, because once I find where I'm going to be happy, I don't need to move from there. You understand? So we have done karma yoga. I've explained that in the previous verses. We have done bhakti yoga, life full of passion, completely inspired life to do what you are supposed to do in life. Full passion. You are living an inspired life. Bhakti yoga is to see divinity in everything and everywhere and take action accordingly if evil comes before you. So that also I've explained it to you. Now we move on to the third pillar of the spiritual discipline called Jnana Yoga. Jnana Yoga, so Karma Yoga is where your physical body is predominant. Bhakti Yoga is where your emotions are predominant. So physical body, rather than giving it into the world and dissipating your energy, you are exercising, you are walking, you are running, you are keeping well and alive, so that the mission, whatever you have registered in your mind, should be fulfilled. And if you genuinely love everybody around you, you will remain fit because you want them to live with you more. So you will be fit, you will tell your family members and push them, nudge them towards exercises and good habits so that they can live with you. So it's the most unselfish way of living. So this is physical personality becomes dominant, where the emotional personality is dominant, where my emotions are much more than my intellect as well as my physical body. Then it is, you have to devote yourself to the higher goals in life. I should not get attached to anything lower. I should have love for everybody, but I'm not supposed to have preferential attachment or attachment in any case, which will pull me down, right? So this is emotion if it is predominant. If the intellect is predominant, then you have to go for Jnana Yoga. I told you, yoga means yuj, to unite. Jnana means knowledge. This is where the intellect starts working. So the intellect in Jnana Yoga has these two important jobs to do. Most important, unavoidable job for everyone is the intellect is supposed to fix a higher goal in life. What is the purpose that I am living? The attitude should be, so what is, where am I going? If my life, Einstein said, if my life is an accident, then my living is also an accident, and I may die away through an accident. It may just be an accident. But if there is some purpose in life, some purpose, because things are happening in a different way where everything seems to have a particular purpose. If there is by chance some purpose in life, then the only mission in my life is to find out what is that purpose. So the highest goal is to find out, who am I? The highest, Aham Brahmasmi, who am I? Or who am I? So you reach that at the highest level. This is the highest goal of self-realization. Then the same thing, this goal of self-realization, where you are completely and supremely contented, is to be broken down into realistic goals, where the intellect pitches, next 1 year, I want to achieve this. Within a span of 3 years, I want to achieve. So some realistic goals which it can achieve, and it will take the body and the mind along with it. So this is one job, to fix a higher goal in life. The more idealistic goal, the more realistic, I don't know whether we can say idealistic goal. The best goal is self-realization. The other is unselfish goals in life. A higher ideal, not necessarily where my benefit is involved, but how can I do something for somebody else? That attitude. So one job of intellect is this. And the second job of the intellect is to keep or harness the mind from getting attached to the lower. Because the mind is constantly exposed, and the intellect is constantly exposed to the world. So new ideas are coming along, which is so-called practical. And the mind naturally goes towards the lower, saying, no, I will find instant happiness here, in this particular relationship, in this particular object. This is where the intellect's second job comes, is to stop the mind from getting attached to any object or being. So that's where you keep on remembering the laws. If I get attached, if you get attached to any object or being, you will suffer. If you get attached to any object or being, you will suffer. Either that object or being will be taken away from you, or there will be a rupture between both of you, or one of them will die. Do not hear this listlessly, says Swami Ramatirtha. So I don't want to get attached. See, people differentiate attachment and they think, if I'm not attached, that means I'm not in love. You are in love, you're doing everything what you can for the evolution of that person, but you are not attached, you're not being dragged down. only when you are independent in your own methods will you be able to take that person out of the muck into a better world. So this is what love is. This is the second job which the intellect is supposed to do. Once the intellect knows its duties, fixing a higher goal and no more moving anywhere ahead of it, just continuing to take that, and mind is not attached to anything, your life becomes happy. This in short is Jnana Yoga. So Adi Shankaracharya says it beautifully in Bhajagovindam, pranayamam pratyaharam nitya anitya viveka vicharam. Intellect's job is only nitya anitya viveka vicharam. Nitya, eternal; anitya, non-eternal, that means temporary; viveka, discrimination; and vichara, thinking. So you make that ulta. Then in English it will be thinking, not only thinking, generally everybody is thinking around anyway. Thinking discriminately. Discriminately about what? What is unreal, what I see around me of people running around over things and worrying about things which has nothing to do with reality. What is unreal and what is that supreme reality? That discrimination is what is important. Thinking discriminately between what is unreal and what is real. So you keep on negating whatever is unreal. The definition of reality is something is called real when it existed in the past, which continues to exist in the present and will continue to exist in the future. This is the definition of reality by the scriptures. In that way, if you see every aspect around this individual, all the things are moving, all the things are ephemeral and temporary. Nothing is permanent, except there is some power which functions through this individuality, which claims everything as this is mine. So who is this I? This is Jnana Yoga. So as soon as you come to this level, you understand that you are at a happier place. With Karma Yoga, no more desires come inside you because you have shut the doors of the world. With Bhakti Yoga, whatever desires are inside within you is purified, is bettered, is subtilized. And Jnana Yoga, those subtilized, purified desires are eliminated in the name of selfishness towards a higher target of life. So the desires are reduced. All the three. But all the three, many times you will find out when you talk about karma, bhakti and jnana to people around, they will say that jnana is the highest because it is coming from the intellect. Bhakti is the second, which is coming from emotion. So people who are teaching bhakti yoga, majority of them, which bhakti culta, they will say that mind is the most powerful. The physical personality who is doing karma yoga, who is doing selfless actions everywhere, they will say action is important. Every action is not bifurcated. All the three parts are included in every action. The action which at present I am doing now, I require a physical body to express myself. Karma yoga. Bhakti yoga, I have to put passion inside it because I believe in it. Whatever I'm speaking is Bhakti yoga. Jnana yoga, it is supposed to be for the higher, not for my selfish end. Every action, I'm just giving this example, every action has all the three yogas included. Bhakti yoga is better than Jnana yoga, or Jnana yoga is better than Karma yoga. It is not the case. Nothing is better than anything else. It is just being honest with your constitution. If my intellect is more available and it is an inquiring mind and a questioning mind, I will naturally gravitate towards Jnana yoga. If my physical body is more alert and every time I jump and keep on doing things, then I am meant for Karma yoga. Just because I'm meant for Karma yoga doesn't mean it's any less. I'm just telling you. So Karma, Bhakti, Jnana, All these three, when you come to this state, it becomes very easy. After this, there are X amount of stages, but you don't have to do anything. This is the beauty. There was a quotation where they say, a person is walking on the beach. There's a poem, and he sees two footprints. And in a particular way, where the most difficult period of his life was there, he saw only his footprint. So he asked God, whenever things were very happy, very good, I could see that you were there with me. But when the times were really difficult, I could see only one footprint. That was mine. Where were you at that time? Why did you forsake me? And God says, my son, it is at that time that I was carrying you. So that is my footprint. That's the beauty. As soon as you do these three things, karma, bhakti, jnana, in a simple way, in your own homes, without changing your field of activity, rest, everything else follows. It becomes very smooth. So jnana yoga, once you have jnana yoga, you don't have arrogance. When you don't have arrogance, you are full of humility. Who are you to achieve anything? Who are you to do anything? You don't do anything. Some divine power is functioning through you at present, and it is getting done. That's it. And once that divine power decides that I don't need this physical body because this has become old and rabid and I would need a new one, it will discard this and choose something else. That's all. The infinite power through this finitude is what is important. A beautiful story of Vasishtha, where there was a king called Kaushika, and he went on hunting and went deep inside the jungle, and he saw a hermitage of this great Rishi Vasishtha. When he saw the hermitage, he had around 50 people with him. When he had a hermitage, he went inside and met Vasishtha, took his blessings, and during that time, Vasishtha said, oh, you have got soldiers, you are there. Why don't I treat you with some food? So Kaushika said, listen, he thought 50 people with me and he just got a small hermitage. He said, no, we just came for your blessing. We are going. No, please sit for 5 minutes. I'll get something. And in 5 minutes, he got all the good stuff to eat directly to Kaushika and his soldiers. They had a good time. And then Kaushika said that, excuse me, from where did you get this food? He said, I got a cow. The cow's name is Surabhi. And she is a Kamadhenu. Kamadhenu means whatever I require, whenever I require, she just wishes, my wishes are fulfilled. So Kaushika saw that and said, okay, then can you do one thing? Can you just give me this cow? Because if you give me this cow, my kingdom, nobody will be hungry. Everybody will be happy. So Vasishtha said, listen, it's not done because they have to work for everything. So you can't just give everything up. So I will not give. So Kaushika got very angry and he tried to drag Surabhi away. Immediately, Surabhi saw the helplessness of her guru, father Vasishtha, and she brought forth 100 soldiers. And those 100 soldiers defeated Kaushika and their army. He went away, but he wanted that so much that he went back, sent his sons. His sons were killed. Ultimately, he came himself to fight Vasishtha. He came with all the weapons, and Vasishtha just put his danda, one stick called Brahma Danda, and all the powers what Kaushika had in his weaponry, it got dissolved. It got dissolved. So when that got dissolved, Kaushika understood that all the riches in the world will not help him to get through this Kamadhenu, Surabhi. So he renounces his kingdom and goes for a penance. And he does a lot of puja, tapas, penance, only with this attitude to defeat Vasishtha, to destroy Vasishtha, defeat him. And after reaching a particular state, as a Brahmagyani, he came. As he was visiting, he saw Vasishtha's ashram there. He came from behind to not attack but confront Vasishtha. At that time, Vasishtha was eating food and his wife was serving, and he was talking to his wife saying that, this guy, Kaushika, he is such a superb person. He got defeated by my knowledge, and look at his zid, that he saw that he is going to do tapas, and now he's become a Brahma Rishi. He's become like me. I'm so happy for him that he evolved to such glory. Amazing. He's one of the kind, I tell you. And he, Vasishtha, this person, Kaushika, from behind the window heard Vasishtha talking to his wife. And there he understood the real power of Vasishtha. Humility. He came and immediately touched Vasishtha's feet. And as soon as he touched Vasishtha's feet, Vasishtha took him and he embraced him. Both became the best of friends. And from there, the title came of King Kaushika, Vishwamitra, the friend of all. Humility is one of the best things that can happen. So when you don't have arrogance of what all I have achieved in the world, because kuch leke jana hi nahi hai, you are going to drop everything and go anyway, whether you like it or not. So what arrogance about anything? You are very humble at every given point of time. And this humility, not getting involved in the temporary aspects of the world, will take you places. After that, all the steps become very easy. The easiest way to understand a parallel for spiritual evolution is making of ghee, in English, which we call clarified butter. When you take milk, which is liquid, you put it in a vessel and light the fire. Then the milk boils, and as soon as it boils, you switch off the gas or you put water inside to just sustain it. After that, you keep it. Supposing you want to make curd, you keep it till the heat evaporates and it comes to a lukewarm temperature. When the milk has become lukewarm temperature, that is where you put 1 glass of curd. Not 1 glass, I'm joking. Small, it's called jamul, just a half a spoon of that curd, and put it inside. Now there are various methods of making curd. This is the traditional method, therefore I'm telling you that. Little bit of curd inside, and then keep the lid tight shut overnight. And next day, when you open the lid, lo and behold, curd. And then you take the curd, you put a ladle inside it, you put a rope around the ladle and start churning it. When you start churning, this is what, there is a photograph of Yashoda doing the churning. So when you start churning, the water separates from butter. Water separates from butter. And then butter eventually can be put on fire again, and then it becomes ghee. Now this is a beautiful step-by-step process of how spiritual evolution should be done. So if you remember Lord Krishna's example, he loved butter. This is an example. And he would climb over everybody and take the butter, and the photograph of him having butter is everywhere. So what it means is, as an individual, my mind is very fluid, running around everywhere. You put the milk, it will just flow everywhere. It will not have any direction. Similarly, at present is the condition of my mind. Now this mind has to be put in a vessel, and the fire of the initial knowledge, Shravana, needs to be lit. What is Brahman? What is this body, mind and intellect? Really, is the world unreal? In that sense, when we say world is unreal, then there has to be some relation of what is real. So what is this reality? Who said this? How do I know it is real? It may be unreal. I don't know. So you are questioning and you are learning and you are listening. This is the initial fire. When the fire comes, when the milk becomes hot, it doesn't move anywhere, you switch off the fire. After that, knowledge is not needed. Then what you do? Rest. I'm studying every day. I'm studying. Six hours I'm studying. 8 hours. You don't need to do that. Take a rest. Like the teenagers say, take a chill pill. Don't bother. Just relax. Okay? Bring the heat inside. The agitation inside of this needs to be done, this needs to be done, this bring that down. Simmer it down. Bring it to a room temperature. Every day, little bit of studies. Bhagavad Gita, Kinchita, half a spoon of curd. Put it, leave it. There used to be a boy in our academy, and he used to carry a small packet in his pocket. And that pocket, he had a diary. And that diary, he had written some laws. So he would write, I just saw him, what is the law? He said, it is difficult to find happiness within oneself, but it is impossible to find it anywhere else. And he would carry that law for 7 days. 7 days, and he'll keep on thinking about it. Is it true? Is it true? Is it true? This is called churning. So it will happen. So first, you bring it down at room temperature, little bit of study, then the curd is formed. Curd is formed means I know. Now I know what Vedanta is, because through these Zoom classes, thanks very much, I led Yoga Vasishta also. I'm doing the general classes also. Now I know reasonably what is Vedanta. And when reasonably what is Vedanta becomes like a curd, it plateaus. Because even that curd will get spoiled if there is no further process. Similarly, the knowledge which I have already gathered, if I don't study further, gets putrefied, gets decayed. That's not the last stop. So you put the ladle of discrimination inside the curd. You tie the rope of likes and dislikes. This is real, this is unreal. This is real, this is unreal. And through that discrimination, you keep on churning into your head. What is real? What is unreal? I am never going to be disturbed by whatever unreal is there around. Whatever is there to solve, I will solve, but I'm not going to get disturbed or agitated. Let nature take its own course. Because now I know who I am. I am that divine principle. With this churning, slowly the water gets separated. All the other junk gets separated, and butter, which represents vasanas, gets separated. Therefore, Krishna eating butter is the representation of Krishna eating in the supreme reality, eating the individual's vasanas away. When the supreme reality eats away, disintegrates the vasanas of an individual, you merge with the totality. So that's the significance. Butter is still there. Then that butter should be heated again in pure knowledge. This time, only thinking about the eternal. I am nothing. Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. Aham Nirvikalpo Nirakara Rupo. Vibhur Vyapya Sarvatra Sarvendriyani. I, Aham Nirvikalpo. I have no vikalpa, no changes. Nirvikaro, I don't have any vikara. I am not a substance to modify. Nirvikaro, Nirakaro, I don't have any form. Though I am in form, I am that formless reality. Who am I? Chidananda Rupa Shivoham. That light, that last fire, where all the vasanas are burnt away, and out comes clarified butter, that is ghee. And ghee, you pack it and keep it, and it will stay forever. This is the way you spiritually move. Don't need to think about too much. I am seriously telling you, it is easy. First step first, cut down the noise. Cut down this external noise of that person did this person did this happened, since that noise is there, it agitates me more and more, and I'm not able to look within. Once this jnanam comes that this is where I need to reach, my target in life is not to get agitated at all. Like Patch Adams, that hero says, Somebody asked him, why are you always joking and you're never serious in life? He says, I've tried serious in my life. It really doesn't work for me. It doesn't work. You want to sit and cry, you cry, but I can't. I sit with you if you want to give you company. But if you expect me to sit and cry with whatever has happened, I can't. I don't have that temperament. You reach that state, you will be more helpful for anybody. And after this, when you do this, all these three, in every action, in your own chosen field of activity, with that strong emotion, with knowing where you want to reach and not allowing the mind to get attached to anything lower, you don't need to do other processes. You will slip into the next stage of uparati. Uparati, withdrawal from the world. Remember, when I use the term withdrawal from the world, I'm not talking about your personality withdrawing from the world, because the world will be there wherever you are. It is the withdrawal of the mind. Complete involvement in the world, it brings itself back. And that we'll discuss next class. Thank you. Oh.